Hello everybody, Gob Scholar here. The year is 1968. In addition to being a year of great change and passion, it also holds a dark and mysterious place in the annals of naval history. In the span of just a few months, the silent world beneath the waves claimed 4 submarines from 4 different nations, all under circumstances that don't give definitive answers. It began with the Israeli submarine INS Dakar, which vanished in the Mediterranean. It was followed by the Soviet K-129 in the Pacific, and the American nuclear submarine USS Scorpion in the Atlantic. These last 2 subs have been covered, and it occurred to me I might as well cover the Minerve and INS Dakar. Minerve and Dakar, at least in my own personal experience, don't seem to get the same attention as Scorpion and K-129, so naturally, as a proud European, I'd like to start the discussion on these 2 lesser known cases with the case of the Minerve. In January of 1968, the Minerve, a diesel-electric submarine of the French Navy, was nearing the end of a training exercise. In rough weather, she was heading home to her base in Toulon. On board were 52 crew members. Her last communication was a simple message reporting her imminent arrival. Then, silence. The Minerve and her entire crew had vanished. For more than 50 years, her fate remained one of France's most enduring maritime mysteries. Search after search turned up nothing. But in 2019, a breakthrough finally came. The wreck of the Minerve was discovered, resting on the seabed 45 kilometers south of Toulon. To understand what might have happened on that stormy January day, we must first understand the vessel at the heart of the story. The Minerve was a Daphne-class submarine, one of 11 built for the French Navy and launched in 1961. The Daphne class was conceived as a second-class submarine. It's important to note that this doesn't refer to her quality, but specifically to her role in the fleet's doctrine. They were designed to be an intermediate vessel, larger and with more endurance than the small coastal anti-submarine vessels of the RA-2's class, but smaller and more agile than the large ocean-going submarines of the Narval class. Their philosophy was clear: create a submarine that retained the best qualities of its smaller predecessors, low noise and high maneuverability, while being easy to maintain with relative small crew. The Minerve had an overall length of 57.8 meters, or just under 190 feet. She had a beam of 6.8 meters and a draught of 5.25 meters. Surfaced, she displaced 883 tons. Submerged, that increased to 1,060 tons. Her propulsion was a conventional diesel-electric system. 2 powerful 12-cylinder Pearl-stick diesel engines provided a total of 1,300 brake horsepower for surface running and for changing her batteries. When submerged, a single electric motor producing 1,600 shift horsepower drove her 2 propeller shafts. This gave her a top speed of 13.5 knots on the surface and a faster 16 knots when it's underwater. Her operational range was 4,500 nautical miles at a steady 5 knots, and she was designed to dive to a depth of 300 meters or nearly 1,000 feet, where the ocean's pressure is immense. As a hunter-killer, the Minerve was well armed. She was fitted with 12 550mm torpedo tubes. Usually these were split, 8 facing forward in the bow and 4 facing aft in the stern, giving her the ability to gauge targets from multiple angles without turning. The design did not include space for reload torpedoes, meaning her 12 torpedoes were her entire combat payload. The submarine was designed for a standard crew of 45, composed of 6 officers and 39 enlisted men. Her final fateful voyage, she was carrying a complement of 52. Before her final fateful voyage, the Minerve had a brief but busy service history. She was ordered as part of the 1957 French naval estimates, and her keel was laid down at Nantes in May 1958. On the 31st of May 1961, she was launched into the water for the first time. Following her construction, she embarked on a shakedown cruise in late 1962, a critical period of testing and crew training that took her to ports in Londonderry, Bergen, and Gothenburg. With her trials complete, she sailed from the Atlantic port of Cherbourg to her new home base in the Mediterranean, arriving in Toulon in December 1962. She was officially commissioned into the French Navy's 1st Submarine Squadron on the 10th of June 1964. For the rest of her career, the Minerve operated exclusively in the Mediterranean Sea. In 1967, just a year before her loss, she underwent a standard refit in Toulon. On the 27th of January 1968, the Minerve was conducting a training exercise in the Gulf of Lion. The weather was described as extremely poor. At 7:55 in the morning Central European time, the submarine was running just below the waves, using her snorkel to run her diesel engines and replenish her air supply. This is a standard but potentially vulnerable procedure, especially in heavy seas. She made radio contact with Atlantic Maritime Patrol aircraft that was accompanying her. The message was routine. The Minerve reported that she would be at her berth in Toulon in about an hour. This was ultimately the last anyone would ever hear from her. She vanished without a distress call, taking her crew of 6 officers and 56 enlisted men with her. She was lost in an area where the sea plummets to the depths between 1,000 to 2,000 meters, well beyond her design crush depth. The immediate question was, could this have been human error? According to Commander Philip Biwio, who knew the crew, this was highly unlikely. He later stated that the Minerve's captain, Lieutenant André Fauve, was a highly experienced officer with over 7,000 hours submerged on this very class of submarine. He was thus considered an expert. With a veteran commander and a capable crew, investigators were left with one primary known factor: the weather. It was, by all accounts, extremely bad at the time of disappearance. The French Navy immediately launched a massive search and rescue operation. Numerous ships, including an aircraft carrier, were mobilized to scour the area. The world-renowned oceanographer Jacques Cousteau even joined the effort with his research submersible, the SP-350 Denise. But the sea held its secret. On February the 2nd, with no trace of the submarine found, the initial search was called off. The effort continued into 1969 under the code named Operation Reminer, this time using more advanced deep-sea submersibles like the Archimede and the American survey ship USNS Miser. The Minerve was gone. The search was over, but the questions had just begun. With no wreckage to analyze, all that was left for the next 5 decades was speculation. With the official search called off and no wreckage found, all that was left for the French Navy and the world was speculation. But for the families of the 52 men aboard the Minerve, speculation was not enough. They needed answers. What followed was a decades-long struggle against a wall of official silence. The French Navy released no information on the possible causes of the sinking. The entire incident was classified. This classification meant that for 50 years no one could access the documents that might hold the key to the disaster. Time and again, families requested access, and time and again, they were refused. As a little bit of a side note, that's eerily similar to what happened with the families of the sailors from the USS Scorpion. So I suppose in a grim, nihilistic way, that shouldn't really be surprising to any of us. But I do feel deeply sorry for those families in both cases. In 2007, Christopher Angus, the son of one of the missing officers, was granted special exemption to consult the archives. After his long fight, he made a startling discovery. There was nothing of any substance in the file. This only served to deepen the suspicion amongst the families that the Navy was concealing elements that might be compromising to them being the Navy. The fight was reignited in 2018 by Hervé Fauve, the son of Minerve's last commander. He addressed a direct appeal to the President of France, Emmanuel Macron. He argued for an early lifting of the secrecy order, pointing out that the file was, by all accounts, empty, that no similar submarine was still in service, and that it contained no information vital to national security. Above all, he spoke for the family's desperate hope for some kind of closure. The plea was heard. On the 16th of June 2018, the French government officially announced the declassification of the archives concerning the disappearance of the Minerve. It was a major victory for the families, but it was only the first step. Declassifying a file doesn't bring a submarine home nor closure. Led by Hervé, the families mobilized. They sent an open letter to officials. They pointed out a painful fact. The Minerve was the only Western submarine lost since the end of the Second World War that had never been found. The campaign gained momentum, supported by active and retired sailors and the French media. On the 5th of February 2019, 50 years after the last attempt, the French Minister of the Armed Forces announced that the search for the Minerve would begin again. On the 4th of July 2019, a new high-tech search began. The mission was contracted to the private company Ocean Infinity, using their state-of-the-art vessel, the Seabed Constructor, the same vessel that had searched for the lost Malaysian airline MH370. Just over 2 weeks later, on the 21st of July, they found her. At a depth of 2,350 meters, that's over 7,700 feet, the wreck of the Minerve was located. She was broken into 3 main pieces, scattered across a 300 meter of the sea floor. Though her sail was destroyed, identification was unmistakable. On the mangled hull, the letters M-I-N-E and a solitary S from her pennant number S647 were still visible. After 51 years, the Minerve had been found. The French government immediately declared that the wreck would be left untouched, a maritime sanctuary and the final resting place of her crew. But the story has one final chapter. In December of 2019, the American explorer and deep-sea diver Victor Vescovo offered to take his 2-person submersible, the DSV Lightning Factor, to the site. In February of 2020, 2 dives were organized. The first carried a retired French rear admiral to gather new data on the causes of the loss. The second was more personal. The second was for Hervé Fauve, the son of the last commander of the Minerve. On the 2nd of February 2020, Victor piloted the submersible while the son of Minerve's last commander descended to his father's final resting place. There, at a depth of nearly 2,400 meters, they placed a memorial plaque on a piece of the hull. As they did, a recording of the French national anthem played in the cockpit. For the families, it was the end of a 52-year wait, a final loving farewell to the men that had been lost to them. Now, while I would love to get into the theories of the loss, due to the fact that, well, France until very recently has only just started declassifying things about it, and obviously the fact that there wasn't much to declassify in the first place, as it turns out, I'll be saving going into theories for another time when I'm better equipped with more available information. A lot of the information about it, while there isn't really a lack of it in English, I think all the juicy stuff really is in French. But yeah, I wanted to end on the note of the families just getting their farewell, which I think they were long overdue for. My only thought on it right now is I feel like the most likely scenario, however unlikely it may appear at my current level of understanding, is that something terrible happened while they were at snorkel depth, Although I do struggle to reconcile that with such a experienced commander. Um, Maybe, potentially, and this is me speaking as a non-Navy man, um, because he was so close to port, maybe he felt more at ease with it being that way, even with the bad weather. But I don't know. It does feel like a genuine mystery, and uh, it's probably going to be another video in the future at some point when I'm more up to date with all the data. Um, but I'm very glad that his son was able to, the son of the last commander was able to just, give his dad a final farewell. That feels correct, if incomplete. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. And another video will be out this week, another Greek mythology one. I'll be doing the Israeli submarine Dakar next week. That one's a little bit more, a lot more to go on, I guess you could say. And I hope you enjoy that one. I will see you in my next video. Take care, everybody. Ta ta.